I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like the sequels. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back in with another video, and this is going to be another episode of the LEGO Star Wars MOC Showcase. This is a series I've created to highlight some of the best Star Wars MOCs that I've come across on the internet, so if you find any of the MOCs in this video impressive, all I ask that you do is just go to the link in the description and support the builders by giving them a like, comment, or even a follow. The first MOC we're going to take a look at today is a Snowspeeder MOC by the Brickdoctor. This thing looks so good to me. I really love how smooth it is. You guys know I am a pretty big proponent of the Larry Large design, and I feel this is definitely an improvement on that, so I figured why not talk about it this week on the MOC Showcase. With the insane amounts of unupdated, rehashed, and antiquated designs of the Snowspeeders that LEGO puts out, I feel it's essentially my duty to spread the word of these beautiful Snowspeeder MOCs, and this is definitely one of them. As I mentioned earlier, I love that the wings on this thing are almost completely snot. It looks so smooth, so good. There are some wild angles in there. I just love seeing how builders accomplish just assemblies like that, where there's bricks just going in so many different directions. It really is just always interesting for me to see things like that, I feel, and I would imagine it's solid. I mean, it's solid enough to be displayed here, which for the purposes of building MOCs is usually good enough. I also like how he's kind of simulated the sloping on the top of the cockpit by having that hinge brick with the wall element and clear brick connected to it, as well as some tiles that kind of gradually slope down. That's really, I feel, a detail that is missing on a lot of Snowspeeders, but there actually is quite a bit of sloping on the roof of that thing, so I'm glad that he incorporated that. One of the other things I noticed about this MOC that I didn't even really know was a feature of the Snowspeeder until I saw, I think, the designer video on the UCS Snowspeeder, is that the two laser cannons on either side of the vehicle are actually angled a bit towards the middle, so their lasers basically meet at one point eventually, and it seems that the builder has actually accomplished that here. Like, the lasers just don't go straight out in front of the Snowspeeder, but rather they're angled towards each other, so they would actually meet at a singular target, and I think that's a really cool detail to incorporate on a build, especially at this scale, so wonderful job on that. I also thought it was just worth taking a closer look at the cockpit section in general. Like, look at how he's accomplished that window that kind of sits between the windscreen at the front and the windscreen at the back. Like, there are some pretty cool like snot techniques going on in there, and it just looks really nice to me. Finally, I love how seamless the flaps come up out of the build. You can see for when the vehicle needs to turn, there's the two flaps on the sides, and on the top one you can see that it's closed and it lays pretty flush with the rest of the vehicle, but the one closest to the front is actually flipped up, and it just seems so seamlessly integrated into the build, especially for it to be so snot and smooth, so I really do like that. Next up, we get a better look at the interior of the vehicle. We can't really see too much of the controls, but you can see that some of them are there. It actually has room for two pilots, which is pretty crucial to something like this. I know that that back gunner area is always a bit of a difficult build to come up with just because of the spacing and the general shape of it, so it's nice when builders can have nice smooth looking builds like this but still also incorporate enough space for that gunner in the back. The one question that I would have for this build is that whether or not the newer style helmets can fit in it. Now, this could ultimately end up being a moot point if LEGO decides to never put them out again, but for now we're rocking with the new helmets. I actually like them quite a bit, and I would hope that they could fit in this build, because I think that would actually be a really nice thing, that they could accommodate the more updated versions of the helmets. The final picture is just a look at the back of the Snowspeeder, and this looks really good as well. I love that the fins that he has on the back are actually wedge plates rather than just tiles or something that goes straight down. On the actual Snowspeeder, those are actually angled, and he has accomplished that here, so that actually looks really nice. One thing I feel that probably could have been improved are the gaps on either side of the back of the vehicle. I can understand why they're there, like having to accommodate those orange stripes on the back. It probably wasn't as simple as just moving those hinge bricks up and then putting something more filling behind it, but I don't know, maybe with a little bit more thought he could probably figure out a way to close up a lot of those gaps, because that's one thing I feel a lot of MOCs actually do really well in kind of hiding the gaps on the back end there. It's kind of hard to get a view of it, but he actually also included the bottom flaps on the Snowspeeder, so that's a pretty nice detail also. And this next thing really isn't a feature of the MOC, but rather just something that I always enjoy looking at on these Snowspeeder builds, is that you can see the pilot's, the rear gunner, like his face kind of through the back window, and I don't know why, it's just always kind of a cool view for me, so I like that about Snowspeeders in general. All in all, this is just a really good looking MOC. I feel that I'm in love with Larry Lars's design, but I've kind of been looking recently for a more smooth Snowspeeder that uses more snot techniques, and this is definitely a contender. This is definitely a candidate, so I'm going to do a little bit more searching to see if I can find one, but this will definitely be one that I would come back to. This next MOC by Lego 7 is titled The Power of the Dark Side. This thing is so cool. It's one of the more creative Star Wars MOCs I feel you'll see out there, and how do I even begin to try to describe this? So the bottom half of it is basically like the surface of the Death Star, and you can see there's like TIE fighters flying around as well as X-Wings, and of course the Death Star's big laser cannon. On the flat portion of the MOC, we get some very familiar scenes from Star Wars. Over to the left side, there's the Emperor's throne room with his 2 guards standing in front of it. There's also a scene of just an X-Wing being chased by Vader's TIE Advance, I would presume it's supposed to be. There's also just some stormtroopers kind of walking around the MOC, which I feel is probably just meant to kind of recreate just Death Star hallway scenes. There's stormtroopers running about, makes sense. It'd be honestly kind of a funny addition to have Han Solo like running away from a bunch of stormtroopers in this MOC. And I feel the key element to this MOC is the giant Darth Vader jetting out of the middle of the MOC. It is brick built. There's a lot of like the Technic kind of car frame pieces. I don't know how you describe those, but there's just a lot of those built into the Vader build, and it looks really good. Like, it looks really good. I'm always impressed when people can like do a brick built Vader's helmet, because there's so many like interesting and intricate shapes in it, but this looks solid. Like, this is a really nice build altogether, but that Vader is just incredible, honestly. I also love the imagery of having the giant Vader with like Luke sitting in his palm. That's kind of, I guess, how Vader and the Emperor would have seen things from their perspective. Like, they literally felt they had Luke in the palm of their hand. So I like what he's evoking there with that imagery. And all in all, this is just such a cool looking Star Wars build. Oftentimes I really go out of my way to find like nice like minifig scale builds to incorporate in this series, but I also can appreciate, I guess, more artistic MOCs like this one. This is something that I think would just make a nice thing to have sitting out like on a table or somewhere. It doesn't even necessarily have to be near someone's Lego collection, but it looks artistic enough to where you could just kind of have it somewhere, not being surrounded by Lego, and it wouldn't feel out of place per se. But this is just such a creative MOC. I love looking at this thing. There's so much to take in, and the build techniques I feel are incredible. The next MOC we're going to take a look at today is our photography based MOC of the day. It's by KCHF, and it is from the deleted scene in Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, where we see Luke kind of looking through his binoculars and observing the big space battle that at that point he doesn't really realize is going to impact him very much, but literally changes his life over the course of the film. I love this scene. I think that I'm pretty disappointed it didn't end up making the film, because it honestly to me is like the perfect introduction to Luke Skywalker. Like, it just says so much about his character in this scene that doesn't really have to say anything at all in words. Like, you come down, like you start off, you know, this expansive space battle with these technological marvels of ships, and then you kind of come down to our main character, who is in this very desolate desert planet, and of course looking to the stars, and that's really a theme throughout Luke's life as we see him grow in Star Wars. So I really do love this deleted scene, and I think it's cool seeing it recreated in Lego. In terms of the actual build, I like the fact that he has kind of the safari hat with the helmet binoculars kind of sitting on it. That's not like an actual hat and binoculars combo, but it looks really good here. Also, the moisture evaporator in the background looks really nice. I love that it's blurred, brings more attention to the foreground with Luke. And I don't know, like, it's a pretty simple picture, but it's so effective, and just kind of, I don't know, taking you right back to A New Hope, taking you right back to Tatooine. I love that movie so much, and as a result, you guys are probably going to see even more photographs from A New Hope in this series. Alright, next MOC is by General Magma, and it is called Ord Mantell, Kylo's Cantina. This is just a really aesthetically pleasing MOC in my opinion. There's so much to unpack here, but let's actually start with the minifigures. I usually do those last, but we can talk about them right off the top. There's a lot of diversity in them. I just love when we can have MOCs kind of populated with various Star Wars aliens. That actually goes a long way for me, and especially when the people who built these don't just place, you know, minifigures right out of the set in the MOC. They instead decide to spice them up a little bit bit, change around some torsos, giving them some maybe not even specifically Star Wars torsos, I think just goes a long way in figure diversity. So I actually like that quite a bit, and he does that really well. You can see over to the right side we have the Rodian. I think that's probably like Ono Kondo Far from the Clone Wars, like that's his headpiece with the big bright blue eyes. And then we have even another Rodian, but like basically a different style. I think that's Greedo's most recent head. So I think just little things like that, you know, like even if you're gonna have the same species, like give them different head pieces if possible, just to distinguish the two. So I think just little things like that go a long way in making a MOC look really nice. We even have a Mon Calamari guy with a jetpack and a spacesuit. There's just little quirky things like that I feel that just make characters look even more Star Wars-esque. So one of the things that I kind of appreciate is that it is mostly freeform. You know, it's not one of those MOCs where like the borders are like super built up, but just not having it be a perfect square or rectangle, I feel just does at least a little bit to draw your eye to it. So I actually give him a lot of credit for doing that. I think the exterior of the actual Cantina looks really nice. I think that it's just like teetering right on the edge from being too much, but it looks consistent enough to where it flows nicely enough to where, you know, you can imagine this like actually being something in Star Wars. Like it almost looks like it's some part of machinery from a ship, or it could actually have been a ship that crashed in the dirt that they kind of repurposed to be some sort of cantina. So there's lots of like panels and lights and greebling all over this thing, and it looks really good to me. One of the things I really like about this MOC is over to the right side of the surface of it, he's using the dark gray horse bridle piece to represent some sort of like piping or tubing in dark bluish gray, and that's actually really important because LEGO doesn't have any flex tubing in dark bluish gray. So to make up for that by finding a usage in other parts is actually really clever. Like I was recently building something where I was thinking, man, like I wish they had some dark bluish gray flex tubing, and this is a pretty good solution to that. So that's something I'll definitely be looking at for some of my future builds. I also have to mention the big sign on the top of the Cantina. That is just so freaking cool. Like I'm sure it probably says something in Arabic. I have no idea what it says, but I'm sure some of my wonderful viewers will go ahead and let me know what that might be saying. I'm just assuming it's Arabic. It could just be some random logo or something, but either way, it looks really cool. There's just cheese slopes kind of put in there at all various angles in trans yellow and trans red, and it looks really nice. Like what more can I say about it? I actually love that design quite a lot. But all in all, I love the aesthetic of this MOC, like the minifigs, the greebling all over the actual Cantina. I think it just looks so seedy. It looks so just like sketchy, and really takes us to some of our favorite Star Wars locations. The final MOC we're going to take a look at today is by Cavegod, and it is this incredible, massive minifigure scale Kylo Ren command shuttle. I figured with the episode 9 sets coming out and the popularity of the Lego set Kylo Ren command shuttle, this would be a perfect time to really update you guys on this build. I believe I actually talked about this in one of the first MOC showcases I ever did, and it wasn't finished at the time, so I couldn't really talk too much about it. It was more of a like, this is something we'll be keeping an eye on type of update for the build, and I think at this point it's not 100% done, but I feel it's close enough to review. Both wings are mounted on it. It has lights. It is insane, and we're going to talk about it today. So Cavegod is one of the best Lego Star Wars MOC builders out there. He has probably the most famous Lego Star Wars AT-AT out there, and I mean, he really has outdone himself with this Kylo Ren command shuttle. So I think this thing clocks in a little bit over 5,500 pieces, and its wingspan is nearly 6 feet long. The wings, when they're standing straight up, almost reach 3 feet each, which is ridiculous. Like, that is insane. This is a really big ship, and it really is just a feat in itself to build something that, you know, where the wings are so long and thin but still have them be able to support themselves. So I've really been wanting to talk about this, and I'm so happy to finally get to share this thing with you guys. So if we move on to the next photo, we get a better look at some of the details on the top of it. It's mostly smooth, a lot of wedge plates in there to represent a lot of the angles on the top of Kylo's vehicle, and of course you can see there are lights that go all throughout this thing. There are some on the main body, and even lights that go up through the wings, which is really cool, especially considering the fact that the wings are articulated. So it's really nice that he was willing to incorporate that. I feel like the gold detailing in the wings also looks really nice. There's just some pearl gold pieces in there, like the grill tiles, as well as the lightsaber hilt pieces. I really don't know what it is about people who build large Lego ships in black, but I feel black is just such a nice color for Lego vehicles. It just makes it look so nice and pristine and premium. I don't really know how to describe it other than that. It just looks really good. There's just so many details incorporated on this thing. I mean, I really do love the use of those black lever pieces throughout it, and especially the ones towards the back, like between the engine and like the main body area. Those look really good as well. The next photo is an even closer look at the front of the vehicle, and one of the most important features about this thing is I feel that boarding ramp. That boarding ramp is pretty iconic. I feel like whenever this ship lands on Jakku at the beginning of Star Wars Episode 7, that's our first introduction to Kylo Ren walking down this boarding ramp, so I think it's really nice that he was able to incorporate that. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any good pictures of the interior. The only photos of the interior I have are from LDD files that he sent to me that were unrendered as well. So I'll actually throw one up right now just so you guys can see that there is an interior, but unfortunately there are no photos of the built interior out there right now. The next photo gives us a better look at the back of the vehicle, and once again, like there's just so much detail put into this thing. Like I love the usage of those cylinder bricks like towards the back, right in front of the engines. I also love the use of the tread pieces going around the engines to add a bit of extra detail into them, and I think that's actually really smart, right? Because you have the wheels that you can use for cylindrical like engine shaped builds, but they're always going to have that big like indenture in the middle of them. So how do you solve that? Wrap treads around them. Not only does it, you know, solve the issue of the big indentures, but it also adds a bit of detail to the like exterior of the engines as well. So I think that's brilliant, and something that, you know, if I'm building big engines, I would certainly consider incorporating into one of my builds. If we go to the final photo, we get a better look at just this model standing tall with the wings straight up. I love this vehicle so much, and I feel Cavegod has really done it justice with his design. Like there's just some nice plating on the exterior of the wings to kind of make up a lot of those really just miscellaneous shapes in them. Like I love that he kind of is consistent with the lines we see on the exterior of the wings by having the wedge plates slightly spaced apart, even having the big tiles slightly spaced apart to give some indentures in the wings. It just makes it look so detailed. I love that design is kind of consistent all the way down the wing. So this is just a great model. I can't wait to build one of these for myself. I think that this is easily one of the best ships of like the new ship designs in the sequels, and man, I want one of these bad boys in my collection. Don't get me wrong, the most recent Lego set is incredible, but nothing is ever going to compare to a nicely detailed minifigure scaled version of a MOC. Cavegod, you've outdone yourself once again, man. And that's going to finish up the MOC showcase this week. I hope you guys enjoyed checking out these MOCs as much as I enjoyed getting to show them off to you. Once again, just go ahead and support those builders. They are just fantastic builders, and they certainly deserve all the support they can get, so use those links in the description. Also, if you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.